Arcane is one of the single greatest seasons of television I have ever had the pleasure of watching. It is a masterful exploration of trauma, grief, the cycle of violence, unchecked ambition, the dangers of science run amok, psychosis, class disparity, parenthood, and at the core of it all, identity, all of which is set against the background of the gorgeously rendered steampunk city of Piltover, a city on the brink of total civil war because of the gross injustices perpetuated by the haves against the have-nots, some injustices deliberate, others accidental. This sprawling story of class hierarchy is interwoven through many disparate plot lines following various characters from all walks of life throughout Piltover as they try to navigate the powder keg which is their city. Some of them want to use Piltover's vast wealth of resources to improve the way of life for all Piltover citizens, regardless of status. Some want to help improve their city but don't have the political know-how or the scientific ambition to effect meaningful change. Some of them are just trying to get by and keep their loved ones safe. Some want to tear it all down and rebuild with themselves at the top. And some are perfect little angels who deserve better than the fate they got. Over the course of 9 episodes, you watch as the various players in Piltover bring the city further and further to the brink of civil war, capping off with a season finale which leaves it clear that, despite the good intentions of so many people, war is inevitable. And there is not a day that goes by where I don't wish that this series had gotten a second season.
She oinked poison in your ear and you just ate it.
Alright, let's get into the specifics. Arcane Season 1 boasts a large cast of characters, but for the purpose of keeping this video relatively succinct, I'm going to focus on who I believe to be the most important characters of the season. Jinx, her sister Violet, Jace Talus and his inventing partner Victor, and Silco. Also, from this point out, you've been warned. Spoiler alert, I am sparing the rod and spoiling the child. Spoiler alert. If there's any character you could call the main character of this story, it is Jinx. Originally named Powder, Jinx grew up in the poor slums of Piltover, dubbed the Undercity by Piltover's residents, with her sister Vi and their adoptive father Vander. Powder, Vi, and Vander's 2 other adoptive sons, Milo and Clagger, have plans. Big plans. You might call them delusions of grandeur, but that just shows what a soggy waffle you are, because these aren't delusions, they're just grandeur. Vi and the gang want to stand up to Piltover one day, to lead a revolt which removes the Undercity from under Piltover's boot, and until they are old enough to be proper revolutionaries, they have settled for petty theft. Following a tip from their friend Echo, they break into an apartment in Piltover with the intention of stealing a small fortune from its wealthy inhabitants. But rather than wealth, they find odd, colorful rocks. Rocks which explode when hit with a sufficient amount of force. After accidentally blowing up the apartment and much of the surrounding building, they flee back to the Undercity, narrowly escaping arrest by Piltover's enforcers in the process. Unfortunately, the knowledge that the explosion was caused by Undercity children causes Piltover to send enforcers to the Undercity in droves to find and arrest the perpetrators. Vander, aware that it is his children who are being hunted, attempts to smooth things over with the commander of the enforcers, whom he has a pre-existing agreement with, but she tells him that her superiors will not allow her to call off the searches until they have found someone to hang. So Vander can either give up the perpetrators, or he can offer up someone to take the fall. Now, let's give some context. The reason Vander and this enforcer, Grayson, have a pre-existing agreement is because Vander has previous experience with the enforcers. Why does Vi want to become a revolutionary? Because Vander himself used to be one. You see, Vander was once like Vi and her siblings, angry at Piltover, bitter at the injustices perpetuated against the lower classes, and so he and his friends organized a full-scale rebellion and attempted to march on Piltover themselves. And they failed. They were not entirely wiped out, as evidenced by the fact that Vander himself is still alive. They weren't even really defeated. They did enough damage that the enforcers felt it was necessary to strike an unofficial peace treaty with them, but they didn't really achieve anything either. Vander's failed march on Piltover is actually the first scene of the whole show. We get to see the aftermath as Vander finishes off one of the only enforcers left on the bridge, and we see it through the eyes of Vi and Powder. Why are Vi and Powder here? Because their parents were part of Vander's failed revolution, and died in the process. Yes, Vander is responsible for Vi and Powder being orphaned, and that is the reason that he has taken it upon himself to raise them. and it's also why he refuses to lead another revolution, or to allow Vi to. Throughout the series, we get lots of details about Vander's past drip fed to us through people who knew him when he was younger, and one unifying thing everyone knows about him is this: he was a ruthless killer. He was so extreme in his rebellion against Piltover that he garnered the nickname the Hound of the Undercity. He was so feared that when he decided unilaterally that he was going to give up on violent rebellion and instead make a peace treaty with the Enforcers, no one objected. This man was the unofficial king of the underworld and a boogeyman to the topside. So, what changed? What made this man, a seething mass of violent rage, finally give up on his rebellion? Seeing the damage it caused and the lives it ruined. This scene is one of the most impressive scenes I've seen, film, television, video game, or otherwise, in a long time. You see an entire character arc play out over the course of a few seconds, and it's all done without dialogue. Vi and Powder arrive and find Vander, who off the bat seems unconcerned with them. He's got bigger fish to fry than babysitting a couple of brats. Vi asks for their parents, and Vander points them to their bodies. I love the attention to detail in Vander's expressions here. He doesn't seem sorrowful about their deaths. He doesn't seem sympathetic to these children about the loss they've just experienced. All he cares about is the revolution. These two girls haven't lost their parents. He's lost two soldiers, and that's really annoying to him. He's going to have to find bodies to replace them the next time they try another attack. Vi, crushed by the sight of her parents' bodies, breaks down in tears as Powder hugs her and tries to console her. Small note, I really appreciate the detail that Powder is the one comforting her older sister here. It feels like a very deliberate flip of the dynamic that we will see between the two of them going forward, with Vi constantly looking after Powder, and I think it makes sense here. Powder is obviously still very young here, young enough to the point that I doubt the gravity of what has just happened has registered with her. She's able to hold it together and comfort her grieving sister because she's not entirely capable of recognizing the severity of the tragedy that both of them have just experienced. It's a small detail, but small details like these are what helps this show be so good. The good details aren't done yet, boys and girls, because we're back to Vander. Gone is the callous, annoyed look he had. Now he seems confused. He doesn't quite know what to think of the little girl crying in front of him. He's a hard man who grew up in a hard situation and has surrounded himself with other hard men and women, all of whom have been suffering under the heel of Piltover for their entire lives. He's able to flippantly shrug off two comrades dying because hardship, violence, and death is all he's ever known. Plus that teeny tiny detail that his experiences have left him consumed in the throes of vengeance. So when he sees two small children crying because their parents have died, it's something new for him. Not to imply that Vander has never felt sorrow, but he has certainly crushed that down and turned it into anger. And so the sorrow being expressed in front of him is like a cold bucket of water to the face. And then we see the conclusion to this 30-second arc as Powder consoles Vi. Vander's look of confusion turns to one of realization as he looks up at the bodies around him, and without a second thought he drops his weapons, picks the two girls up, and walks back to the Undercity with them, turning his back on Piltover and the war he started to try to conquer it. Vander good. Vander very based and red-pilled. Vander was a man fueled by anger and a need for revenge in his youth. He and his associates dreamed of seceding from Piltover and starting their own sovereign nation where they could live free of Piltover's oppression. Vander was willing to kill for his dream, to lead men and women to their deaths for his dream, to give his own life for the dream if necessary, but what he realized on that bridge was that there was one thing he was not willing to do for that dream, and that was ruin the lives of the people who followed him. It's one thing to lead an army of men and women into battle, all of you having the same understanding that you could die in the process. It's another to walk away from that battle and have to explain to their families that they won't be coming home, especially if you were the one leading them into battle. This first scene forms the basis for Vi, Powder, Vander, and Silco's arcs for the rest of the season, but for this first arc it mainly bears relevance to Vander, Vi, and when he inevitably appears, Silco. As I mentioned before, Vi has started to get it into her head that she would like to stand up to Piltover, a notion that Vander will have none of. Both of these characters are at different steps in the same character journey. Vi is currently in the process of letting her bitterness and the hardships of her life mold her into a would-be revolutionary, and Vander has come out the other side of that very trajectory and would like nothing more than to go convince her that it's not worth it. All of Vi and Vander's scenes are positively dripping with thematic value. Having learned of Vi and her gang's job in Piltover, Vander dresses down Vi for attempting such a dangerous mission, reminding her that being the leader of her outfit means it's her fault when things go wrong. If she has people following her who will do what she says unquestioningly, then she has a responsibility to lead them in ways that will help them, not harm them. When he can see that he's not getting through to her, he later tries taking her to the bridge where her parents died to remind her of what she lost when he tried doing the exact thing she's fantasizing about now. Vander and Vi's storyline in this arc sets off a discussion which will continue to follow the characters through the rest of the season: the nature of violence. Just about every decision in Arcane which leads to the civil war which erupts at the end of the show is motivated by one or more people choosing to escalate because they are unwilling to let the past go. War and conflict are inevitable because men and women like Vander and Grayson are rare. When given the opportunity to profit, to climb the societal ladder, or just to get back at someone who you really hate, most people will choose profit, standing, and vengeance. The peace that Vander and Grayson want is unattainable for them because they are surrounded by people who either will never have interest in it or people who insist on learning the same lessons that Vander learned the hard way rather than just taking his word for it when he tells them revenge isn't worth it. Thankfully, though, Vander is able to get through to Vi, though not in the way he meant to. Vi learns about Vander's deal with Grayson, and although she is initially furious that he would deal with Topside, he is able to convince her that keeping the peace is more important than holding grudges. Unfortunately, they are left with a predicament. Vander's peace won't last unless the Piltover Council is given someone to hang for the explosion, and, unknown to Vander, Powder still has the explodey rocks from the apartment, which will definitely incriminate her if found. So, Vi makes a decision. She contacts Topside and lets them know that she is turning herself in. Vander finds out about her plan and confronts her, locking her away and then telling the enforcers who have arrived that he is turning himself in. Grayson knows that he didn't do it and refuses to use him as a scapegoat since he's the only person keeping the Undercity docile, but Vander makes it clear to her that he will not be turning anyone else over. It's him or no one. Vander, very good. Best dad ever. However, as the enforcers are preparing to arrest Vander, Silco appears and uses his magic roid monster henchman to kill the enforcers and kidnap Vander. Alright, I've mentioned Silco a couple of times. It's probably time to let you know who Silco is. Silco is one of the best TV villains in recent memory, a fact which I am going to explain at length over the course of the 3 videos I spend reviewing Arcane. First, let's talk about Silco's backstory. Silco was, at one point, Vander's closest ally in their joint rebellion against Piltover. Silco was, for all intents and purposes, Vander's co-leader of this revolution. He and Vander endured the same hardships at Piltover's hands, came to the same conclusions, and led the same revolution together, but there is one key difference between them. Silco still believes in the cause. In this story about the cycle of violence and the consequences of refusing to let the past go, Silco functions as the exact opposite of Vander. Whereas Vander realized that there were certain lengths he was not willing to go to get revenge on Topside, Silco has no such scruples. He is a man of singular drive who will go to any lengths to get what he wants, and who will in no way suffer injustices perpetuated against himself or his people. Silco and Vander's backstory is not entirely fleshed out in the first season, and we are only given glimpses of what their relationship was and how it deteriorated, but here's what we can piece together. Silco and Vander put together and led the Undercity's rebellion efforts against Topside, both of them being of the opinion that the Topsiders would only take them seriously if they resisted with force. Their ultimate goal in their rebellion was to secede from Piltover and reform the Undercity into an independent nation, which they had tentatively named Zaun. Vander's change of heart and decision to pursue peaceful negotiations with Topside created a rift between him and Silco, who refused to accept any deal with Topside that did not include total independence for the Undercity, and made it clear to Vander that he would continue to lead insurrections against Piltover regardless of Vander's peace negotiations. Vander, unwilling to let the two halves of Piltover devolve into civil war again, promptly tried to murder Silco, but Silco managed to escape and went into hiding. In the intervening years, Silco started rebuilding his guerrilla forces from scratch, preparing for the day when he would inevitably step back into the public light to restart his rebellion against Topside. But soldiers weren't the only thing he gathered during the intervening years. Given Piltover's superior forces, weaponry, and expertise, Silco needed something that would give his forces an edge against Piltover when he inevitably restarted his revolution. Otherwise, they would simply be defeated again. So Silco did what any evil mastermind worth his salt would do. He hired a mad scientist of dubious morals to create and manufacture a magical drug called Shimmer, which, when ingested or otherwise injected into a body, gives the subject superhuman speed, strength, durability, reflexes, and, depending on how high the dosage is, driving them completely insane.
Well, drugs are bad. You shouldn't do drugs.
But it still doesn't end there, dear viewer. Silco doesn't just have his eyes on Topside, he has his eyes on Vander. You see, in Silco's eyes, Vander is as bad as Topside. Not because he is corrupt like them, not because he is cruel like them, not because he takes advantage of the people of the Undercity like they do. No, Vander is just as bad as them because he rolled over. He capitulated to the oppressors, let them grind their boots into his neck, and took it rather than fighting back. He had the nerve to walk away from the fighting while injustices were still being committed against their people. To be a dad, that degenerate. Look at this idiot being the world's best dad. You know what? I'm on Silco's side. I hope you rot, Vander. Look, seriously though, yeah man, I get it. Your best friend suddenly became a dad. He's got no time for you anymore. Happens to the best of us. I personally wouldn't try to kill him though. I'd just become friends with his kids. All my friends have pretty awesome kids, quite frankly. You'll probably have to get some help first, though. You'd probably be a bad influence on them at this point. Wait, Silco, no! And so we are brought back to the present. Silco has been spying on Vander, waiting for the perfect moment to exact his revenge for Vander's betrayal, and has finally found it. He has his Roid monster kill the enforcers arresting Vander, and then knocks out and abducts Vander. He takes Vander to his headquarters, where he makes it clear that he will kill Vander if Vander doesn't get back in the saddle and ride with him against Topside again. Vander is shocked that Silco is still obsessed with revenge after all these years, and Silco, in one of my favorite moments of the season, responds that it is not for revenge, it is
For respect.
This is probably the most important detail of Silco's character at this point in his arc. He is not a man driven by revenge by any means. Even now, having been betrayed and left permanently scarred by Vander, he would let bygones be bygones in an instant if Vander just agreed to stand with him. Silco doesn't care that Vander betrayed him. He doesn't care about the wrongs that Vander personally perpetuated against him. Silco is concerned with what he views to be Vander's wrongs against Zaun as a whole, that wrong being that Vander abandoned them. It's a very specific mindset that I don't often see in villains. A man who is so big picture that he doesn't even concern himself with revenge. His mindset revolves entirely around stopping further injustice, not avenging past injustice, and it's a mindset that almost puts him at odds with the entire world around him. Even Vander doesn't entirely grasp his former friend's outlook, evidenced by his attempts to bargain with him. Vander says he'll let Silco kill him if that will satisfy him, assuming that Silco is angry with him because of his attempt to kill Silco. This offer only serves to make Silco more angry. Why? Because it's really annoying to this revolutionary that the man who helped start the revolution would rather die than help continue it.
You die for the cause, but you won't fight for one.
It's almost like they're talking past each other. Vander, in response to Silco's kidnapping him, is offering to let Silco take his revenge if it will placate him, and Silco is annoyed that all his kidnapping has done is prompt Vander to give up his life to put a stop to the revolution when his intention had been reigniting the fire that had once consumed Vander. These are two men whose worldviews are so diametrically opposed that they can't even properly negotiate with each other because neither fully understands what it is that the other wants. Vander wants a world where his children can grow up in relative peace, even if they have to suffer the effects of an unequal societal class structure, and Silco thinks that said inequality is so intolerable that to continue living with it would be unacceptable even if it was peaceful. It's just a perfect philosophical debate to have with these two characters, and the mentalities that go into each is fascinating to watch unfold on screen. Vi gets out of the room Vander has locked her in and goes to round up Milo and Clagger to rescue Vander. Powder tries to tag along, but Vi insists on leaving her behind. Powder takes this... well... Yep. I remember the first time I saw The Rise of Skywalker. Don't worry, Powder. You eventually learn to live with the pain.
Rey Skywalker.
We haven't talked about Powder much yet. Let's talk about Powder. First and most important, Powder is an innocent angel who is too good for this world. Second and also most important, Powder has serious self-esteem issues owing to the fact that she is at that awkward age where she really wants to help out, but isn't really good at anything yet. She wants to contribute to the gang, but she usually just gets in the other's way. The one thing she can really contribute are her inventions. She's something of an amateur inventor, and has been designing traps and bombs to use in brawls since she isn't as physically capable as the rest of her family. But even those inventions need a lot of work. Everyone knows that she's kind of dead weight at this stage, but Vi is a really good older sister and has consistently been encouraging to Powder, bringing her along even when it probably isn't beneficial to the group, defending her when Milo bullies her, reminding her that she has things to contribute to the family even if she isn't as physically capable as everyone else. So when the only person in her life besides Vander who has been consistently on her side and built her up as a valuable member of the family tells her she has to sit out the most important mission they've ever run to rescue their father, yeah, it kind of destroys her whole world. One of Powder's defining traits in this first arc is her lack of confidence, her crippling awareness that she is not particularly useful and everyone else knows it as well. Vi has spent so much time talking her up that she was starting to believe it, but hyping her up in the safety of their home is different from taking her into active danger. Vi refusing to take Powder is, to Powder, proof that all of her insecurities were correct. Powder has nothing to contribute, and so she is left behind. Oh. Powder, no.
I can help them.
Powder, no! In the middle of Powder's mental breakdown, she remembers that she still has the stones that she stole from the apartment in Piltover. The stones which blew up a building, meaning that they are just what her bombs need to start working. Powder, realizing she can help, takes the stones and heads out after the others. I'm sure nothing will go wrong. Vi, Milo, and Clagger arrive at the abandoned building where Silco has imprisoned Vander. They get in no problem, find Vander easily, and begin freeing him. Man, that was easy. Silco's an idiot. Oh. The building's not abandoned. It's actually the place Silco has been manufacturing Shimmer, and he left the window open for them to get in, and put Vander in the open for them to find him easily. And now that they're all here, he's planning on having his goons kill Vander and his children, and then spread the word throughout the Undercity that Vander cracked under the pressure and fled to another country with his children, leaving the people of Zaun to fend for themselves. Dude, seriously, just get to know his kids. You don't have to kill them. I tasks Milo with picking the locks holding Vander in place, Clagger with breaking down one of the walls for them to escape through, and begins fighting off Silco's goons using Vander's gauntlets from his rebellion days. Now, let's talk about fight choreography. There's a fine balance you have to walk when making a fight scene. It's really easy to mess up. In a fight, your opponent will be doing their utmost to defeat you. If you're fighting a group, they won't fight you one at a time. They'll gang up on you, especially if they're underhanded like Silco is. But you've also got to choreograph your fight in a way that is believable. You don't want your main character getting badly injured or killed because they're the main character. Well, you can maim them, but very few writers are willing to make a decision that big, as it potentially limits what you can do with said character going forward. So you've got to design your fight in such a way that your main character is able to realistically defend themselves. It would look really awkward if, in your fight, the opponents would wait to attack until your character is already blocking, or if they all aim their attacks at your sword rather than you, or if you hit one opponent and two more also fly away. This is part of the reason movies like Oldboy are so beloved, because they take the time to choreograph realistic fights. How do you justify your character defeating an entire gang in a fight? Well, try setting the fight in a narrow hallway. That way the gang will be bottlenecked and will be forced to fight him one at a time. Have the gang members take every opportunity to attack when they see an opening. Hell, have some of them throw stuff at your protagonist since they can't reach him. If you put your main character in a position where he can't realistically fight them off, allow him to take hits. Show him getting tired. Show him pushing through the pain of the hits he's taking, making it clear that he's only barely holding on through this whole ordeal. When he finally gets to the end of the fight, it will feel satisfying and you will really believe that your protagonist just went through a harrowing battle, only barely escaping with his life. Alternatively, if you just want to have sloppy slugfests with little choreography, show that. Show the characters on the verge of complete collapse, lean into the chaos of it all. Or if you don't want to do that, just have an excuse for why they can take so much damage and keep rolling. Maybe they're giant robots, so it doesn't hurt them too badly to get chainsawed in the gut. Maybe they have super healing, so they can just tank 2 magazines full of bullets to the torso. You get the idea. Arcane's fight choreography is excellent. The animators actually studied boxing and other forms of martial arts to better depict Vi's fighting abilities, and it shows. Every hit carries weight. Vi's form is amateurish but effective. She tanks hits and doles them back out. She's not a great fighter, but she's an effective one, and she's not superhuman. It's such a compelling detail to see her visibly struggling to even hold up Vander's gauntlets. Vander is a hulking mountain of a man, and Vi's a girl in her early teens. Of course she's not going to be able to use Vander's weapons effectively, but they're all she's got, and so they're what she'll use. She's at such a clear disadvantage against these hulking men staring her down in height, weight, weapon loadout, and that's what makes her stand against them so compelling, a complete underdog defending her family. But one thing she does have to give her an edge is her fighting prowess. Vi has been brawling her entire life, and when she's not brawling, she spends her free time sparring. She's spent years honing her fighting technique. These henchmen are just that, henchmen. Men who have likely relied on their size and strength for their entire lives to bulldoze their way through confrontations. The likelihood that they've ever been in a proper one-on-one fight, especially with someone who's got any kind of training, is slim to none. And so none of them are prepared when the little girl in front of them starts putting up the fight of her life. Despite the gauntlets weighing her down, she moves fluidly and effectively fights off the men. She also benefits from the fact that Silco's men are bottlenecked by the catwalk they're on. Frankly, that's one part of Silco's plan that was poorly made. He put them in a really easily defensible position, though to be fair, he clearly wasn't expecting any of Vander's kids to be capable of defending themselves, so I guess it's a little forgivable. Silco makes up for his mistake, though, by sending his roid monster to fight Vi. Vi tries to fight Andre the Giant, but Andre makes short work of her and Vi is forced to flee into Vander's holding room, barricading the door behind her. Wait, door? Seriously? Silco, dude, come on. A holding cell with a wall that could be knocked down with enough force and a giant reinforced door? My dude, there are better ways to kill your bestie. Maybe I'm an idiot, but I'd start with not giving him a blast door to hide behind. Don't be going stupid on me, Silco.
You never go full re-
Milo gets Vander's restraints off. He initially struggles and almost panics, but Vander, who is also panicking at the thought of his children being killed, calms himself down and then calms Milo down with some encouraging words. Vander, good dad. As Milo frees Vander, Clagger finishes knocking down the back wall of the cell and the group begins to leave. Man, who could have guessed that Silco's decision to put them in the one room with an escape route would result in them escaping? You overcooked chicken finger. Listen, Arcane is a masterpiece, but it's not perfect. Nothing in creation is. There are some flaws every now and then. I'm sorry, I don't make the rules. Anyway, Silco's temporary room temperature IQ has resulted in Vander escaping. Oh no! Silco, what are you going to do? It would take a serious stroke of luck for you to kill Vander at this rate. Oh, hey, it's Powder. Powder? No. Oh no. Oh no. Please don't work, please don't work, please don't work, please don't work, please don't work. Oh, thank God. Make no mistake, I don't hate this. I think this is phenomenal writing. I think it's ballsy writing. To commit to Powder secretly coming on the mission despite being told not to and accidentally killing her own family, yeah, they are dead, by the way, is a decision that most writers would not make. It's bold, it's harsh, it's depressing, and it locks you into a specific character arc for Powder that you can't back out of. Most writers would bait this kind of plot twist and then go back on it because they would like to pretend that they make big dramatic storytelling decisions without actually committing to the consequences of said decisions. But Arcane is a cut above those shows. Attack on Titan sucks, by the way. Silco, having been far enough from the explosion to survive, angrily orders Solomon Grundy to finish off anyone who might have survived the explosion, while inside the now destroyed holding cell, Vander regains consciousness. He sees that Milo and Clagger have both been killed in the explosion, and just lays back down. His kids are dead, he's trapped under rubble, and he had already been beaten to within an inch of his life beforehand. His kids are dead, he's too weak to stand, and so he just resigns himself to his fate. But then he hears Vi crying from underneath another pile of rubble. Realizing that one of his children is still alive, Vander activates his dad's strength and stands up from underneath the rubble, turns some of the debris into makeshift knuckle dusters, and goes to work on the few goons still standing. Best TV dad. Vander reaches Gregor Clegane and goes to work on him. Unfortunately, Shimmer is no joke, and so Bane makes short work of him. Vander gets back up to go another round, and then Silco stabs him in the back. Vander almost holds it together for long enough to kill Silco, but succumbs to his wounds and falls off the catwalk. Silco sends Hulk to finish off Vi, who's still trapped underneath the rubble, but just before he can, he is brutally murdered by Vander. Unfortunately for Silco, Vander fell straight into a crate of Shimmer and managed to take some before he fully kicked the bucket. Now that he's all hopped up on venom, Vander has started descending into animalistic rage like other Shimmer users have, and prepares to maul Silco for everything he has done. But before he can, he remembers Vi, and after only a moment's hesitation chooses to rescue her instead of taking revenge. This dude just never misses an opportunity to be the world's best TV dad. Vander leaps from the building with Vi, shielding her from the fall, but is unable to go any further. Although Shimmer gave him a temporary boost, it has not repaired any of the damage he sustained, and he is still dying. With his final breath, he tells Vi to take care of Powder before dying. I don't think I need to say anything here. I've given you all the build-up. It's just phenomenal storytelling. An amazing last stand for this character, a perfect way for him to go out. The man who spent so much of his life trying to take revenge on the city that hurt him, in his last moments chooses to save his daughter over getting revenge on the man who killed his two sons. And he did this while hopped up on rage drugs. It's the exact kind of death a character like Vander deserves, and I am still, even 6 rewatches later, beyond impressed that this character was only with us for 3 episodes. This episode is truly a phenomenal end for Vander's character and does such a good job of finishing the previous 2 episodes' job of laying the groundwork for the plot and thematic story threads, which will be going forward.
It worked!
Oh god, no! Powder? Now is not the time. As you might imagine, Vi is not pleased to realize that Powder was the one who set off the explosion that killed Milo and Clagger. You might even say she's a tad upset about it. Powder, realizing what she has done after seeing Vander's corpse, begins having a mental breakdown, a breakdown which certainly isn't helped by that punch from Vi. She asks why Vi left her behind, and Vi angrily tells her that she's a jinx who ruins everything she touches. And then Vi notices that Powder is bleeding and stumbles away as Powder begs her not to leave her.
Vi, come back! Please come back! Please!
Hurts my heart every time. Okay, deep breath. Okay, oh my god. First of all, Powder's voice actress was 11 when she recorded this. What the actual hell did the director do to get this performance out of an 11-year-old? Did they force her to watch while they killed her dog? This is probably the best child voice actor I've ever heard. Okay, now to the writing. Losing a loved one can be a complicated thing, especially if the one who caused their death was another loved one. I've talked to friends who have felt that Vi was out of line for reacting the way she did, and that it was out of character for her. To be clear, it is out of line, but it's not out of character. Vi has been shown to care about Powder more than anyone, but she's also been shown to be just as frustrated with Powder as Milo and Clagger. Yes, she defends Powder. Yes, she encourages Powder. Yes, she believes Powder is capable of becoming a great asset to their family, but she's just as aware of Powder's current shortcomings as anyone else. It takes discipline and patience for her to put up with Powder's shortcomings. There's a reason she left Powder behind for this mission, and that's because she knows at this stage that, despite what she might tell everyone else, Powder is a liability. At best, she would be dead weight, at worst, an active hindrance. And now Powder has proven to be a hindrance in the worst possible way. She is directly responsible for the deaths of Vander, Milo, and Clagger. They would have all escaped if it hadn't been for Powder coming along and trying to help. And so all of this pent-up frustration and resentment that Vi has felt for Powder deep down for being a hindrance is suddenly brought to the surface by the realization that Powder has killed their entire family. But that doesn't change the fact that she does still love Powder. Most people point to Vi walking away from Powder as the thing that is out of character, but she doesn't leave her. She just walks around the corner to grieve. She has no intention of leaving Powder, but she's too angry to be near her. If she sees Powder before she can get a hold of her emotions, she will hurt her again, so she takes space to get control of herself. Unfortunately, this is not the environment to be leaving Powder unsupervised. Silco walks around the corner with a knife, ready to finish off Vi and Vander. So imagine his surprise when he finds Vander dead, Vi gone, and Powder crying. Silco prepares to kill Powder, but first he asks her where Vi went. And this single hesitation creates an opportunity for something truly terrifying to happen. Powder tackles Silco, but she's not trying to attack him. She's trying to hug him. As she clings to Silco, Powder tells him that Vi abandoned her and that she is not her sister anymore. Vi sees Silco with Powder and attempts to get to her, but is captured by an enforcer named Marcus who has been paid off by Silco and dragged away. Silco looks at Vander's corpse and he gets an idea. Powder has been abandoned by her sister, just as Vander a man Silco once considered a brother, had betrayed him. Rather than kill Powder, he wraps his arms around her in a hug and tells her that everything will be okay.
We'll show them. We will show them all.
And so now we have our status quo going forward. Vi, who has been molded and shaped by Vander's ideology, and Powder, who is going to be molded and shaped by Silco's philosophy going forward. Silco, a man who was betrayed by his brother, corrupting his brother's youngest daughter to his ideology as one final spit upon Vander's grave. Silco adopting Powder simply to give Vander one last middle finger is brilliant, both because of the things it says about Silco and because of the arc it will establish going forward. Silco is not above feeling some level of empathy. He was willing to spare Powder because he could see himself in her, and that tiny sliver of empathy is going to be very important going forward. Yeah, this is all just phenomenal stuff. Can't wait to pick it up next video. But now we must transition to our other major storyline for these first 3 episodes. A storyline which begins outside the apartment that Vi and company were robbing in episode 1. Meet Jace Tallis and Caitlin Kierman. Jace is a prospective inventor from a low-level family, although the fact that he's from Topside still means that he's pretty well off compared to most of the city, to be fair. And Caitlin is the daughter of Cassandra Kierman, who is a member of Piltover's ruling council. Caitlin will become important on later episodes, but for now we're focusing on Jace. Jace has a dream. He's going to bring magic back to Piltover. Literally. Yeah, Arcane isn't just a steampunk show, it's a fantasy show. Piltover is a bastion of scientific advancement, and this is due largely to the city's strict ban on magic. Magic has been used and abused by evil men and women for countless centuries, and it was these abuses which led to Piltover's founder, Cecil B. Heimerdinger, who I am going to affectionately refer to from here on out as Hubergoober, founding Piltover as an oasis free from magic and the corruption that it brings. In the years since Piltover's founding, its citizens have been raised and reared to fear magic, due both to the horror stories which regularly come in from other nations where magic is still practiced, and from Humbo Gumbo himself based on his own experiences with magic. Jace does not have this stigma against magic. Jace does not have this stigma because he has seen firsthand the good that magic can do. When he was a child, Jace and his mother got lost in the wilderness during a snowstorm and nearly died from frostbite. They were spared death when a mysterious stranger appeared and used magic to teleport them out of the snowstorm, leaving the gemstone he used to perform the teleportation spell with Jace. Since that day, Jace has been studying gemstones in secret, trying to reverse engineer his own gemstones for magical use. It is Jace's vision that one day magic will be a regular part of Piltover's life. A tool to fix the city's various problems, a tool for healing, a tool for safety and protection for manual laborers, so on and so forth. Already, we've got a pretty compelling start for Jace's character. He's got a goal, he's got a vision, he's got an altruistic vision of the future where magic can reinforce the scientific advancements which Piltover is already making, and it should also be observed that Jace's plans for magic could prove to be very beneficial for the Undercity. Scientific progress and the inventions it produces are ultimately limited, but Jace's magic could potentially be limitless, and could easily be utilized as a tool for providing relief and support to the Undercity. Let's see if that's what ends up happening. Jace arrives to his apartment from a shopping run with Caitlin only to find his apartment door barricaded shut. He hears voices inside and tries to knock down the door, but before he can get in his apartment, the room blows up. You see, it was Jace's apartment that Vi and company were robbing, which actually should have been obvious now that I think about it, since I already mentioned that he made the gemstones they found. Jace and Caitlin are both relatively unhurt, but the explosion draws enforcers to Jace's apartment to investigate, along with a man named Victor, who is Humble Gumble's assistant at the academy. Jace is detained while the authorities confiscate his research material to figure out what he could have possibly been doing that would have caused such an explosion. Personally, if it were me, I'd just assume it was meth and give him the chair, but I guess that's why Sherlock's the detective and I'm not.
4 serial suicides and now a note. Oh, it's Christmas.
While in jail, Jace is visited by Coco Jumbo, who questions him regarding the myriad dangerous illegal devices Victor found in Jace's apartment. Jace confesses that he was researching magic, and Mumbo Bumbo rebukes him for trying something so dangerous. However, he is also convinced that Jace's motives for researching magic were benevolent and simply misguided, and tells Jace that he will ensure Jace does not get the maximum sentence for his research if he admits fault for the explosion, apologizes for his reckless experimenting, and doesn't say a word to anyone about magic. So we've got some nice, juicy dilemmas for our driven protagonist. I'm also a fan of this first scene for Bobo Haha. He's a jolly little fellow, which is really endearing when paired with his adorable character design, but he also really does just come off as a friendly grandpa. Even his reasons for promising to help Jace get off with a light sentence are wholesome and speak to his mindset. In his mind, Jace was simply an enterprising young inventor who was trying to push science forward, even if it was through misguided means. If Hummus Wummus punished every inventor for reckless endeavors, no new scientific breakthroughs would ever come. It's important not to stamp out youthful innovation, but the look on his face when Jace first mentions magic is also perfect. This guy really feels believable as a man who has survived some horrible things at the hands of magic users and wants nothing to do with it. Really solid establishing scene for him. Jace appears for his trial before the council and initially tries to take Sussy Wussy's advice, trying to own up for his reckless actions and imploring for mercy from the council, but then the counselors start insulting his work. To be fair, they're not trying to insult him, per se, but they are dismissive. They assume that his work was probably frivolous and useless, as evidenced by the fact that it blew up in Jace's face. Jace, unable to stomach listening to the council speak so derisively of the magic which saved his and his mother's lives, loses his temper and reveals that he was working on magic. He makes an impassioned plea to the counselors to consider the benefits of magic, especially if his hypothesis that it can be controlled and funneled through science is true, but the counselors are unconvinced. This is another great scene for establishing Jace's character. He's a man of strong convictions. He has seen the good magic can do, and so he can't tolerate seeing the work he was doing with it being denigrated. This isn't about his work being insulted. It's about a noble endeavor to better humanity being insulted and laughed at. His work wasn't trivial, it was revolutionary. It wasn't worthless, it was going to improve lives. Jace is a man with a spine who will stand on business even if it costs him, and this is a good opportunity to display that. The council, unconvinced by Jace's plea and suitably upset that he has been tampering with magic, sentence him to the maximum punishment for practicing illegal magic. Banishment. Okay, is that actually the best punishment you've got, Pepsi Flexi? No wonder you've got a rebel problem. Give old Papa Palpatine a call, get some advice from him. Jace's mother intervenes and makes her own impassioned speech on Jace's behalf, begging the counselors to take pity on her only son and overlook his foolish obsession with magic. Humble Bundle is moved and agrees to allow Jace to stay in Piltover on the condition that he be barred from ever stepping foot in Piltover's academy or practicing any kind of science for the rest of his life. Damn, permanently banned from school. Where's Jace going to get peer pressured into a pill addiction now?
Whoever has the marijuana, just pass it up to the front row.
Jace, being the teacher's pet that he is mad at his mom for getting him kicked out of school and for also agreeing with the counselors that magic is stupid, considering it saved her life. His mom tries to tell him that she couldn't bear the thought of losing him forever if he were banned from the whole city, but Jace is furious with her. If he had been banned from the city, he could have tried going somewhere else to practice magic, but now he's stuck with no resources to continue his research. I appreciate getting to see the downside to Jace's willful nature. He's so dead set in what he wants that he would burn bridges with his own mother because she doesn't support it. There are some causes where this level of dedication is justified, and there are some where it's just stubborn pig-headedness. I guess we'll just have to see which of these is true of Jace. Jace tries to visit Caitlin but is turned away by her mother because Jace is officially social poison for their family now that it is known that he was practicing magic. Yeah, that's right. Get out of here, you filthy leper.
Out of here, you filthy smoker!
Yeah, dirty lungs.
Jace, in true emo fashion, goes and contemplates suicide now that his mom has ruined his life.
I am utterly alone.
But before he can commit to the bit, he is interrupted by the arrival of Victor. Victor reveals to Jace that he has been reading his notes and has become intrigued by them. He believes that there may be real viability to Jace's research and offers to help him complete it, to which Jace agrees. Why is Victor so interested in Jace's magic? Let's put a pin in that for later episodes. With Victor's help, Jace quickly completes and refines his research, and over the course of a few hours, they discover a way to refine Jace's crystals so that they could actually be used for something other than spontaneous combustion. Unfortunately, in order to test their theory, they need Jace's confiscated equipment. Equipment which Victor reveals Higglewiggle is going to be destroying the following day. Victor suggests using his set of spare keys to the Academy to break in and steal back Jace's equipment, but Jace is reluctant to risk them both getting banned, and is only convinced to try it after being reminded by Victor of the good his magic could do. The two break into the Academy, but are caught breaking into Bumblestumble's lab by Mel Medarda, another member of Piltover's council. She initially threatens to report them, but Jace begs her to let them try to prove that his magic can actually be generated and used. Let's talk about Mel, as much as we can for now. Mel is a politician through and through. Mel is concerned primarily with climbing the political ladder, and to that end, she has gotten really good at manipulating others and taking opportunities when she sees them. Mel is not originally from Piltover. She is from a rival nation called Noxus, but left after having a severe falling out with her family. A falling out we will get to in detail later, but what can be said for now is that she is obsessed with money and status. When congratulated for her status as the richest woman in Piltover, her response is,
Yet I remain the poorest Medarda.
Mel wants to build Piltover into an empire, if for no other reason than to give the finger to her home country and her family to show them that she doesn't need either of them and is capable of building her own empire without them. And so, Mel is willing to use anything to improve both herself and Piltover, even if it is expressly outlawed by Piltover. Mel sees an opportunity with Jace's magic to put Piltover further on the map. If it succeeds, she gets to claim credit for supporting Jace. If Jace fails, she can wash her hands of the entire ordeal and let Jace and Victor take the fall. So Mel gives them until the end of the night to produce results. Mel's a good character archetype to include in this show. The political opportunist who doesn't really have any morals that she abides by, she simply looks for opportunities to advance herself. She's the exact kind of character you want to include in a show about the slow devolution of a nation into civil war. Can't wait to see where else she goes in this series. Jace and Victor go to work in Hobo Globo's lab and begin to make progress, but it is slow. There's also the little problem of the light show the magic causes. Uber Fluber and some enforcers notice and go to investigate. Victor uses his cane to barricade the lab's door so that they won't be interrupted, and they continue dialing the machine in, which causes the gemstones to become increasingly unstable, culminating in an explosion which blows out the windows of the lab, only to suddenly reverse and pull the shards of glass flying in the opposite direction that they were initially flying. As the enforcers and Humid Druid are about to break the door down, Jace closes his eyes and remembers the specific motions that the sorcerer who saved him and his mother made, and dials in the machine the same way. Okay, let me bring in my major criticism for this side of the story. The magic in this world is not properly explained at all. According to the show itself, you can only use magic if you were born with the ability to do so, so it's not a skill you can learn, hence why Jace is trying to develop technology which will allow him to harness the power of magic. Before I even try to comprehend or interact with the mechanics of how a machine would suddenly give you the ability to control magic if it's something you have to be born with, I need to ask the question of why Jace thinks that controlling magic with machines at all will be acceptable to Piltover. Jace's whole premise is being able to create and control magic artificially with science to improve the lives of people, but creating and controlling magic artificially as opposed to whatever natural-born magic users do to control it doesn't really fix the problem that Piltover has with magic. The objection they have to it is that in the wrong hands it can be used and abused. I don't really get what Jace thinks he's going to convince them of by funneling magic through a machine first. Obviously, what he hopes to show them is that magic can be used for good and to improve the lives of people, but that is also true of natural-born magic, so it's not like he's showing them anything new by providing them with an artificially created magic source. It's a magic source that can still be used and abused. The danger is still there. But of course, all that being said, I'm willing to accept the explanation that Jace is simply a young idealist, and he kind of thinks he can just bulldoze any objections to this by showing the people around him the inherent benefits of magic. I guess I just wish that when he finally does produce the results he's looking for, literally anyone other than Chungo Wungo would recognize the dangers that are still deeply possible from all of this. Now, in addition to all of that, how does this machine even work? You twist the dial in specific ways and it causes the gemstone to do what you want? Obviously, Jace knows the right ways to rotate it because he saw the sorcerer do his airbending, so I'm not gonna ask, I'll just accept that. But how did you design a machine that translates airbending to a single dial? Which, of course, that question brings me back to the baseline underlying premise of all of this, which is, how do you take something like magic, which is inherently esoteric and which you apparently have to be born with in order to use, and turn it into something you can just dial into an iPhone? It would be like releasing a new Star Wars movie where someone's just developed a device that allows non-Force users to use the Force by clicking a button on it. Like, how do you even invent that? And even if you were capable of inventing it, how do you figure out how to program it to do what you want it to do? Like, if you've got to do martial arts and airbending just to do a teleport spell, then how do you translate that into a dial on a machine? What are the wire connections you have to make in order for that to even come close to working? I think we're supposed to infer from all of these runes all over the machine that they have something to do with it. Turning the dial flips them around, and depending on which rune you've got facing which direction, it causes the stones to react in a certain way. But then does that not mean that just knowing how to use these runes determines whether or not you can use magic? How is it hereditary? Jace is using the runes right now using a machine, so, like, is it not just something you learn? Are the runes not just a language that you interact with? If you have to be born with inherent magical abilities, but you can only use those abilities by interacting with these runes, that just brings me back to my original question of how using a machine as your middleman suddenly takes out the need for you to have the right blood or whatever. Also, on the subject of the mechanics of magic, how do the crystals factor into this? The only true blue magic user we see has to use a gemstone with his airbending in order to use magic. Could he just not use magic if he ran out of gemstones? Then how is it hereditary? How are you born with the ability if you can't use the ability without some magic stone that already has special properties in it? In that case, what is it about him that makes him so special? It's so weird. They introduce magic by saying that you have to be born with the ability to use it, but then all of the mechanics involved in making and using magic imply that you don't need to be born with it. It's just something you learn. Also, on the topic of the gemstones, where did Jace get all of his from? He was given one that had already been used up when he was a child, so did he make more? Did he buy them from someone? The magic in this show is just really poorly explained to the point that I kind of think there isn't a good explanation for it in any form. Maybe if they had gotten another season, they would have gone deeper into explaining it. No, get out of here.
Get him out of here! Get the
Sorry, where was I? Oh yeah, Jace dials in the right combo just as Whittlespittle and the guards manage to break in and are greeted by the sight of Jace and Victor floating in the air. Jace pushes a small bit of debris towards the machine, and when it gets close, it disappears and instantaneously appears on the other side of the machine. Jace and Victor are ecstatic with their results, but Hobberglobber tells them that magic is not part of Piltover's future, only for Mel to walk in and tell him that that is a decision for the entire council to make. Satisfied with the results of her gamble, Mel tells the men in the room that Piltover has entered the age of magic, and Jace corrects her that they have entered
the era of Hextech.
And that is the end of the Jace plotline for these episodes. You will notice that this section is a little shorter than the Vi Powder section, which is admittedly due to the fact that I have less to say about it. Jace and Victor's plotline for these episodes is a lot simpler than Vi's and Powder's, and I quite frankly care about it a little bit less than theirs. That doesn't mean it's bad, it is very good, but I do think it gets overshadowed by the phenomenal writing done in Vi and Powder's storyline. It will pick up going forward. Victor is one of my favorite characters in this season, but these episodes were mainly table setting for future plot lines. Also, Jace's plot is completely absent from the first episode, so Vi and Powder are also benefiting from an extra episode here. All that being said, phenomenal stuff. This entire season is a masterpiece, but I would say that these episodes, and episodes 7 through 9 in particular, are the cream of the crop. Which makes sense, since these are the episodes that are setting up and paying off the season's arcs, but I digress. Outside of the few criticisms I've expressed, I have nothing but praise to give to these episodes. I can't recommend them enough. If you've not seen this series and chose to watch this video anyway, 1, thank you, but 2, watch the series. The season is worth the watch even if you already know what's going to happen. If you made it all the way to the end, thank you for your support and dedication. I will be releasing more videos for Arcane, but they will not be next. I've got a back catalog of videos to release, and so I will be releasing those first, but rest assured, I will finish this Arcane series, so please look out for more in the near future. And with that, I have nothing left to say, but thank you for your time, and goodbye.